And it's different in that you're going to be exposed to risk for several years. I mean, this varies a lot depending on the size of the project and the municipality and all that, but you're going to be exposed for quite a while to risk while you take the raw land and develop it.
Welcome to Real Estate Hustlers Podcast. I am your host, Josh Appleman, founder and CEO of Appleman Capital. Today we've got Dan Hippercost, CEO of Front Range Land. Launched his real estate career at 21. His strategic acumen by his late 20s led him to thriving portfolio, granting him an unparalleled lifestyle freedom. Dan, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Josh. Yeah, thanks for having me. So long story short, I started working pretty early, and through high school and college ran other people's businesses. And as I was finishing college, around 20 years old, I realized that I was a little ahead compared to most of my friends, and that I'd been managing people for years, managing P&Ls and other people's businesses. I didn't get to have a lot of fun in high school or college, but nonetheless, I thought, okay, well, how do I take this and apply this to some sort of business or investing to put myself ahead as an adult? And so I started reading different books on equities and businesses. And it was like everybody else when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was like the light bulb moment. Real estate it is. And so at 21, I went and bought a duplex as a house hack. I was listening to Bigger Pockets and a lot of the real estate podcasts you'd probably recognize. And shortly thereafter, I bought another house hack, just a single family, living in one room, renting out all the others. And I realized that the low and no money down stuff, as far as actual investing, it's good for maybe a house hack or two. But the reality is real estate investing is a cash intensive venture. Things are going to go wrong, even if you do buy with no money down. One of my rentals I bought at 100% seller financed. I promise you still need money. And so a normal middle class job wasn't going to cut it. And it was around that time that I started looking around for some sort of active business that I could start. You hear about flipping, wholesaling, all these different strategies. And it ended up being land and development that I settled on because really I met a investor at the local real estate meetup in Colorado Springs where I live. And I actually host that group now. And he'd been doing land and development all over the country for the last 40 some years. And he needed help in his business. And so I'd go down an hour south of where I live, down to Pueblo, West Colorado, every weekend, help him with whatever I could. And what that really turned into was, along with just helping with the builds, because he was doing quite a few just infill builds at the time, what was sourcing the land for the new construction projects, going direct to seller, figuring that out to go get land for the projects. And I got really good at that. And that is ultimately where Front Range Land came from. And so quite simply, it's just a giant marketing funnel going direct to seller for land. And most of it, we just buy and sell. Very occasionally, I might do an assignment, haven't done in a long time, but pretty much close everything. And then a few at a time, I'll put new construction on and sell that. And so it's quite simple, actually. And then that's the active business that has continually fed the acquisition of more rental properties. And so I've been doing this for 6 years and not planning to stop anytime soon, but I'll pause there.
Oh, that's great. That's you started out with like a lot of other real estate investors start out learning with podcasts, learning with reading books, and then taking action into single family. And it's like the advice, the acumen, don't bite something bigger than your head. So as you do things and get experience, you get the experiences, and your head gets bigger with knowledge and more knowledge, and it keeps you safe through the years for the most part. So what initially inspired you to get into the real estate at such a young age?
Well, that goes back to having to work pretty early on. And, in high school, all I did was go to school and then go to work. And then in college, I was working full time while going to school to pay for it. That was miserable. I had no life. I had no fun. That sucked. And so that was really it. It was just freedom. I wanted some amount of freedom as an adult. I saw my older siblings, my parents, my cousins, uncles, everyone did the same thing. Went to school, got a ton of debt, got a crappy job, They were stuck in their jobs, and I did not want to replicate that. And so that was really the impetus, is just not being stuck the way everyone I grew up around was.
Got it. Makes sense. That's good enough reason. It definitely keeps the motivation going, and that's the biggest piece is
Yeah.
what is your why? Because your will
Mm-hmm.
creates the actions for what you desire, and that's kind of how big is your why and
Mm-hmm.
your motivation behind the scenes. So on land investing, how are you all finding these deals? And I don't even know if you would consider land finding the deal. Of course there's different areas. Don't get me wrong, like some very prominent areas, and if you snag a piece of land in a great area, then it becomes it's already it's intrinsic value is the location. How do you all are you looking for an off market list where you just pull data and advertise directly to the owners, or
Yep. So the majority of our business comes from direct to seller mail. Send about 10-ish thousand mail pieces a month. Postcards have been working really well, but sometimes we do letters, mix it up a bit there, depending on the time of year, and always just testing. And then we do some very targeted cold calling as well. So yes, it's all off market. Don't really do anything on market, at least on the acquisition side. We resell on market all the time. And yeah, mail is the majority of it, and the key is the follow up, because we very rarely get deals on the first few conversations. It's very often 10, 20 conversations later that we get a piece of land under contract. And one important distinction I want to make, guys, Josh, I'm not sure your background with land or any of your audiences, but people often misuse the word raw when referring to land. They say, oh, raw vacant land. They see a piece of land between two houses. Oh, there's a piece of raw land. No. So I go after land that is already horizontally developed. All the entitlements are in place. The utilities are there. It is, for all intents and purposes, shovel ready, where the end user, whether it's me or somebody else, just has to get the plans and engineering done and go through the process of getting a permit. No further improvements are needed to the land itself in order to build on it. And this is really important because there's a lot of time and money that is put into taking raw land and turning it into thousands of shovel-ready lots within a subdivision. And so totally different business model. I have friends that go and take raw land and just get it to the point of being horizontally developed and then sell it off to builders. It's a great business model. It's just different. And it's different in that you're going to be exposed to risk for several years. I mean, this varies a lot depending on the size of the project and the municipality and all that, but you're going to be exposed for quite a while to risk while you take the raw land and develop it. Whereas the simple arbitrage model I'm doing, the land is already buildable. And so I just think that's important that your listeners know that those two things are very different.
Yeah, to kind of compound on top of that, we've got it's 21 and a half acres of industrial I-1 land. It's already entitled for the permitted use, what we wanted for self-storage. However, there is a 20-year overlay that has already been approved and entitled on top of the I-1 zoning. So with that overlay, it permits up to 200,000 square foot of industrial warehouse. So that's then to get our project approved, it's taking it all the way back through the physical court to get a conditional use permit. So it's there's definitely there can be nuances to the land, and those are always found in the covenants of the deed and planning and zoning and everywhere else. But are you all going after residential, or are you going after industrial?
Mostly residential. Occasionally we will get multifamily lots, but the vast majority of it is residential.
Got it. Yeah, and then of course I'm thinking you're doing large tracts to where you can sell that land to a larger developer, housing builder. Is that?
In several hundred deals, most of them have been between a quarter and 1 acre infill lots. Think throughout Florida. Florida is just an endless array of subdivisions, with maybe 20 to 50% built out all the way up the coast and even inland. And so most of those subdivisions have small quarter, half acre lots. Those have been great. And even the big guys, so think of D.R. Horton or Toll Brothers or Lennar, they do large subdivisions where they own the whole thing, but then they also have, D.R. Horton calls it their scattered lot program, where they buy individual lots within these already done subdivisions where they don't own the whole thing. So among the big builders, you have the medium and small guys as well. And those tend to be the end buyer for the lots we sell. And then sometimes it's just the mom and pop who's going to hire the builder to put a house on that land for themselves.
Got it. So you mentioned Florida. What would be like the coolest lot that you have ever gotten under contract? Like wow, I can't believe we have this under contract.
Coolest, I guess, there was one we did this year in Homestead, Florida. That was a great deal. And for anyone who doesn't know where that is, it is within Miami-Dade County, south west of Miami. And it's kind of up against the Everglades on the one side. And it's very landlocked, so to speak. Like there is not much land over there because you go towards the metro and that's all built out. And so we bought it at 45 and we resold it at 130,500 with 24 hours on market. And so that one was just interesting because that was a great deal. Obviously, they're not all like that. And that one, it was a weird type of, it was a very specific type of ag zoning where there was all kinds of restrictions and they couldn't build a house on it without a special use permit. But that area was so in demand. I've never seen demand for land like that before.
Yeah, Miami is still, it's still wild down there. It's got a massive growth. It's incredible. But yeah, you'll get those pieces of property like you all doing direct to seller. That is that opens you all up for some very unique opportunities that typically never even go on the market because you'll blast them out to your email buyers, I'm sure, before you even take it on the MLS, and then those somebody of theirs might grab it, and then if they don't, then you'll see it pop on the MLS, and then it's open market. But that's where kind of like being on mailing lists to different wholesalers and guys that are bringing deals. Sometimes you can get the deals through those channels before the MLS. That's cool. How many? So what? Tell us about your portfolio. What have you grown your portfolio to right now with land?
Well, with the land, it's just a cash printing machine is the goal. So I don't want to keep anything on that side of things. It's just a way to scale my income to go buy more and more and more rental properties. Okay. So that's the goal there. And so if we're sitting on land and it's not moving, that's a problem. So velocity is a big part of the business. It's just a way to make money ultimately. So I'm not the type that's buying land and holding it for 3 to 5 years, at least not now. So
got it. Okay. Very good.
Usually we have a couple dozen properties between under contract to buy, listed for sale, and then under contract to sell. We usually have 2 to 3 dozen properties.
Yeah, that's what makes land very tough is that there's no cash flow being produced. So it's tough to get it under contract and then go through all of the entitlement process, planning and zoning when you don't have entitlements. You've already got entitlements when you're purchasing these properties. Yes. So that's a huge advantage to the end buyer that can just simply pick out a print, work with the architect, and then get things done. That's huge.
Yep.
Very cool. So what have been some learning lessons that you've encountered on your journey so far?
Yeah, there's a million things I could go through, but just sticking to land, because the point I want to make is applicable across the board. It's hard to overemphasize the importance of follow-up, because when I look at our CRM, we have a long-term follow-up category, and we pull deals from that all the time, 6, 9, 12 months later. I mean, so many of these deals are 20, 30, 40 follow-ups down the road. The deal I just cited in Homestead, Florida, that was a really good one. I think my acquisition manager had been on that for 10 months, and there was over 40 follow-ups to get that deal. And so basically the way we have things set up, if we talk to the seller and they seem like they're our avatar, right? And what I mean by that is our seller demographic. If they say, hey, I want 60 grand, it's worth 50. And, that's not our seller, right? Oh, okay. Here's our realtor. Good luck. Go call a realtor. But if they're insistent on not selling with the realtor, they're not unreasonable on price, we will continually follow up with them until we either get that deal or they sell it to someone else or tell us to F off. We will not stop following up, because really the key to marketing is just being ever present in that person's mind until they're ready to sell, so that when they are, they call you. And so that's probably one of the biggest things I want to drive home to all your listeners.
Let's kind of tie this into maybe some marketing strategies for the listeners, guys that are trying to break in, and because that's a big part. What are some systems that you'd have them set up, and then are you all doing text blast? I know you're doing direct mailing, but is there text blast, or what kind of CRMs would you use, and tie all that together for us?
Sure. So we use Pebble, and that is specific for land. It would not be ideal for houses or apartments. So you'd need to find a different CRM. But I know there's plenty of options out there. That's not that hard. We don't do text blasts. Once we're already in contact with the seller and having a conversation, we might send a text just as a means of follow up. But I have our own internal SOPs for frequency of follow-up, depending on the conversation and the seller and what's going on. But that varies dramatically, so I can't give you a good rule there. But whatever asset you're targeting, make sure you have a good CRM. Make sure you're relentless on your follow-up. And oh gosh, there was another point I wanted to make, and I lost it there. But yeah, for us, it's just call and mail. And once we have a lead, we're just calling and texting with them mostly from that point. I mean, email can be useful, but we like to get them on the phone if we can.
Yeah. Are you all leveraging a VA?
No VAs. I've not had any luck with that. All my people that work for me are here in the U.S.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. It's been hit and miss. I know what you mean. It's you can get them trained really good. Just take Everflow things and then nominal tasks, duties off of your core personnel employees, and then just kind of creates a disconnection too. Is what we've kind of battled. So it's a back and forth, but totally agree. So what is the overarching big hairy audacious goal to the land investing? Keep doing it until your multifamily portfolio pays for everything else, or what's the goal?
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm working on refining those for next year, so I don't have those fully built out. But the biggest new thing is with a partner, a friend and now business partner of mine. We just launched Ground Up Partners, which is if you have a land deal and you need to close it, you're not assigning it, you don't have the funds for it, bring it to us. We'll partner on it and provide the capital. So that's worth discussing if anyone has land deals that they don't have the capital for. So launching that and really getting that built out is a big thing we're working on for next year, because the land space is so inefficient. There are no capital providers. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but barely. I mean, there are almost no capital providers for land. All of my friends in the land space have the same problem of having a really hard time getting financing, even if they're buying it at 50, 40 cents on the dollar. And so we're working to solve that problem. So that's one of the biggest things on my radar, along with just keeping my business going, my personal business going.
Yeah, I think, and you're 100% correct. Land is extremely tough to finance, and you've got to have a really, really solid business plan for the purpose of buying the land. It's got to be able to be executed. Ultimately, no bank and no hard money lender or any lender wants to be stuck with a piece of land that they have to try to sell, and that's just the cold hard truth, because it generates no revenue. There's no intrinsic value to it unless your business plan gets executed. So as long as there's a purpose to it and it's able to be done, I mean, the value is what you created. That's the biggest piece. Unless it's just in a ridiculous area with a ton of demand, like your Miami deal. I mean, it is extremely tough. We have another piece of land that we for another property that we're doing a flex warehouse development on, and it's tough to get it to where you have enough time without actually closing on the land first, and then getting your development done. So totally resonate with that for sure. Okay, and then you're opening up a capital arm to actually assist with closing the land and then becoming partners. That's good. That's a good strategy as well. Cool. So I'm assuming that you all are nationwide, just wherever the deals are at, or are you looking focused in on just niche markets?
With my personal land business, we're in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Colorado mostly.
Cool.
that was very intentional because especially 12 months to a year and a half ago, there was so much uncertainty. Nobody knew the degree to which the interest rates were going to impact the market, and we still, of course, don't. The future is always uncertain, and so I sleep well at night going to markets where new builds are still selling in the 200s, and there's still a massive amount of people moving there. Right, those markets are going to be the last to go under if something goes horribly wrong with the economy. And so I like being in those sorts of markets.
Yeah, for sure. Where you've got population growth, job growth. There's a demand, pent up demand already there. I like that
And
for sure.
yeah, Josh, let me make one more point there. I'm talking about in my active business day to day where I'm quickly buying and reselling. For my buy and holds, I'm doing that in Colorado. Colorado has calmed down a lot in the markets that I'm doing business in along the Front Range. And if I'm planning to buy a rental that I'm going to keep for 10, 20 years, I'm far less concerned with what's going to happen next month or even next year. Again, what I just said about sticking to those cheap entry level markets where a lot of people are moving, that's referring to my day to day business, where you can get caught with your pants down if you're trying to buy and sell something in the course of 3 to 6 months. But if you're going to hold it for 20 years and it sustains itself, then that's less of a concern.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's and then as economies of scale pick up, then you got to be in the right areas for that as well. Just
Mm-hmm.
of course, that's different property sizes. It's just depends on what your buy and hold is. Um,
Sure.
Very cool. So you had mentioned a mentor early on in your investing career, and then you've
Mm-hmm.
taken over the REI meetup. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the mentor is just a close friend now, and the key there was not asking for anything for quite a while. More just going, helping him, listening, and learning. So being somebody now that occasionally people do reach out to me, don't send a message and on the first message to someone you've never talked to before in your life that you heard on a podcast, ask them for something. That's not a great way to get a mentor. Don't ask them to be your mentor. What you're really doing is just over time making a friend.
Yep.
So important note there. If I had asked him to give me all your secrets day one, that probably wouldn't have gone over quite as well. And then yeah, the real estate group is in Colorado Springs. That's been really valuable. There's, of course, always a portion of the room that comes and doesn't do anything, but the amount of competent people I've met there and business partners and people I've transacted with that I've met there has been really amazing, and that's been well worthwhile. And I mean, we get a really solid turnout, anywhere from 50 to 100 people generally. So that's been worth doing for sure.
Awesome. Have you had the opportunity to train someone else how your business works as far as
Mm-hmm.
in the meetup? Very cool. That's
Yep.
it's gratifying to pass the knowledge along.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Dan, if somebody wants to reach out to you, learn more about land investing and how they can possibly look more into your company and be a part of it, how can they reach out?
Dan Haberkost on Facebook, Instagram, or just danhaberkost.com.
That is perfect. I truly appreciate you spending the time with us today. Definitely look forward to following you. And Dan, we will certainly talk soon.
Thanks, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you.